The brass compass doesn't point north, it points to the woods. Arthur Morgan stands at the fence line, breath fogging in the cool of early morning, thumb brushing the dented lid of the old case he's carried since his grandfather died. He cracks it open, and the needle kicks to life like a trapped insect, then steadies, not toward the sunrise, not toward the wide sky, but toward a dark seam of timber where an abandoned cabin slumps under moss and vine. He turns his body. The needle turns with him, stubborn as a mule, dragging his attention back to the same fixed spot. The cabin no one enters, the one the kids dare each other to touch at Halloween and sprint away laughing. "Come on," he mutters, half to the compass, half to himself. He walks the fence. The needle follows. He drives out to the road, past the mailbox with fading paint. The needle follows. Down the county highway, the farm shrinks in the rear view until it's a smudge of green. Arthur pulls into the gravel lot of the feed store, flips the compass open on the dashboard. The needle trembles, then whips around and locks, still pointing home, still pointing to that same slice of woods. "That can't be right," he says out loud. Inside the feed store, the radio crackles through static about a storm tonight. Someone laughs near the bins of nails. The place smells like oil and hay. Arthur keeps glancing at the compass in his palm as if it might at any second remember its job and behave. It doesn't. Even when he sets it on the counter next to a jar of peppermints, the needle quivers like it hears its name in the distance and tilts back toward the farm. By afternoon, the sky goes the color of metal, the wind dragging across the pasture with a dry hiss. Arthur drives home slower than he should, watching the dark band of trees swell in the windshield, the cabin tucked like a secret at their heart. When he kills the engine by the barn and steps down into gravel, he hears the long quiet of the countryside, cicadas thrumming, a crow arguing with its own echo, the far-off slap of a screen door. He sets his boot on the path through the sumac and sweet gum. The compass needle brightens with purpose, like a dog catching a scent. He passes the rusted harrow where grass has grown through the tines. He passes the stone where his grandfather used to rest his coffee cup and point out weather to learn from. "Watch the grass," the old man would say. "It tells you what the wind plans to do." The grass today leans toward the cabin. The path narrows, hemmed by brambles. The cabin shows itself in pieces. First the roof, a sag of gray shingles. Then the porch, a rib cage of boards. Then the door, iron latch orange with rust. The air is cooler here, darker. It smells like damp wood and old nails. Arthur curls his fingers around the latch and the metal bites with cold. "Why you?" he asks the compass, because it feels better than talking to the empty doorway. The latch gives, groaning. Dust slips from the frame in tiny avalanches. Inside, the light is thin, and the floor hard-packed dirt under a scab of rotting planks. A window gapes, ivy fingering the sill. Tools abandoned. A hand saw with a missing tooth, a hammer with a split handle, a tobacco tin caked shut. The cabin has been empty long enough to forget voices. The compass needle spins as if excited, then nails itself to a spot near the center of the room. Arthur steps there. He kneels. He presses his palm to the dirt. Cold radiates up through his bones like a secret refusing to stay buried. From the doorway, wind fingers the spider webs. The storm is closer now. Thunder sounds like someone rolling barrels down a long wooden hall. Arthur stands, sweeping his beam of a flashlight low. The dirt beneath the boards looks tamped in a different way, flatter, tighter, as if something once lay there heavy enough to change the ground's memory. He could walk away. He could chalk it up to grief and bad bearings, but the needle doesn't lie, and neither did his grandfather. The compass points. Arthur answers. He shoulders the door wide, steps outside, and pulls the pry bar from his truck. Metal scrapes wood. Nails scream out of old joists. Planks lift and stack like ribs he is carefully spreading to reach the heart. The storm inhales. The trees shiver. The cabin holds its breath, waiting to hear what he will learn about it. He digs. By the time the first drops hit the porch roof, Arthur has moved a square of boards big enough to kneel in. The dirt under the cabin looks compacted, darker like river silt. When he drags the shovel into it, the blade clinks on stones and something else, something that rings instead of thuds. The wind noses through the doorway, bringing the smell of wet leaves and old smoke. It folds around Arthur in a damp shawl. He is a quiet man, the kind who counts seed by touch and listens to the way a gate settles after you fix it. His hands know work. He wears the same denim jacket his grandfather wore, cuff edges polished by years, elbows patched once with canvas. The farm is not wealth, It is persistence shaped into rows. This year has been a lean one. Feed bills stacked like thin plates. A truck that needs a new alternator. A roof that ought to be fixed before winter. He keeps the books honest and the animals fed and jokes to himself that hope is a crop you have to replant every morning. He didn't plan to inherit a mystery. He inherited a compass. The funeral last fall stitched the family into a patchwork, a cousin with a new baby, an uncle who drank too fast and spoke too slow. His grandfather's workshop smelled of machine oil and cedar. The drawers were neat, labels written in a hand like careful fence posts. At the back of a shelf wrapped in an oil rag, Arthur found the brass compass, the lid engraved with initials rubbed thin, the hinge smooth from thumbs. His grandfather used to press it into his palm when they walked fence lines. North is good to know, he'd say, but sometimes what matters points a different way. Different indeed. This morning, when Arthur opened the lid out by the barn, the needle ignored the sky. It chose the cabin. He is not the superstitious kind, but he is not blind to patterns. Calves get jittery when a storm crawls down from the hills. Swallows fly low when rain is coming. There are reasons even when you don't know them yet. So he pays attention. He works the shovel edge into the seam of earth and leverages a slice up and aside. The sound beneath is clear enough now to make his scalp tighten. Metal on metal. He spreads his fingers in the dirt and feels a chill like shade even though the day hums with summer. Something down there draws the compass and the skin at the base of his neck and the imagination he normally keeps shut. He backs out into the doorway, pulls his phone from his pocket and thumbs out a text. Arthur, you around? The three little dots bloom and vanish. Then, Noah, if this is about borrowing the trailer again, you still owe me a six-pack. Arthur, not the trailer, the mini excavator. Just for a day. Something weird. Noah, weird like coyotes in the orchard or weird like that time your pump house hummed in the night? Arthur, weird like a compass that won't look north? Noah, on my way. Arthur smiles despite the storm. Noah Bennett is the kind of neighbor who checks on you when the power lines ice over and brings a chainsaw and a thermos in the same hand. Where Arthur runs quiet, Noah fills silence with stories. They balance. He pockets the phone and stands in the doorway watching the first serious gray curtain of rain pull across the pasture. The scent of petrichor rises, a sweetness like the earth exhaling. The storm has a low belly and long legs. It will walk the county by nightfall. Inside the cabin, the beam of the flashlight pools on dirt where the boards have been peeled back. The compass needle is devout as a prayer, unwavering. Arthur plants the shovel again and makes the hole a little wider, a little deeper, finding the way by sound more than sight. When the blade hits again, the ring that jumps up his arms is unmistakable. Steel? Old farm equipment left to rot? The cabin is older than his father, older than anyone alive remembers. Log walls chinked with clay and straw, a chimney half fallen, a porch where the steps have collapsed into their own shadow. Kids used to come here to dare each other. He came here once as a boy and found a tin whistle under a plank. He remembers the sour taste of fear and excitement in his mouth like copper. A truck horn bleats outside. Tires crunch wet gravel. You hold up in there? Noah calls, voice cheerful as always. In here, Arthur says, and the shape of Noah fills the doorway. Ball cap turned backward, rain jacket flaring open at the throat, grin already in place. Place looks like it's been napping 100 years, Noah says. His gaze drops to the hole. He whistles. You digging a grave or a swimming pool? Listen, Arthur says, and tips the shovel into the dirt. The bell-like ring lifts again, metallic and deep. Noah's eyebrows climb. Well, that ain't a rock. The compass, Arthur says, flicking the lid open with a thumbnail. Noah leans in. The needle holds steady toward the hole. He laughs, a short sound. Okay, that is weird. They fetch the mini excavator between rain bands, trundling it up the path in low gear while branches slap at their jackets. The machine's engine is a steady growl under the drum talk of rain on leaves. Back in the doorway, Arthur pauses with one hand on the jam and looks at the room like he might look at a field before the first pass with the plow, measuring, planning, feeling the weight of what comes next. If you like stories where small things point to big truths, Arthur thinks, this is one of them. If you're watching this, if you can feel the pull of it too, stick with me. Subscribe. Leave a comment telling me where you're from and tell me if you've ever had something ordinary behave like it knew a secret. Because that's what this is. An ordinary compass, and a secret that could change everything. The storm mutters. The excavator idles. The cabin waits, listening to men with machines and old tools and a stubborn will. Arthur steps back inside, sets his jaw, and nods at Noah. "Let's find out what's pulling," he says. They start simple. Widen the opening, peel back more boards, shovel out the top layer where the dirt is dry and packed like a baked crust. The excavator's narrow bucket is gentle as a spoon in careful hands. Each pass lifts another mouthful, and with each thin layer gone, the air gets colder. A cellar chill, as if the ground is leaking night. The compass needle vibrates now, eager. When Arthur holds the case over the hole, the needle stabs downward so hard it rattles against the pin. "Feels like my fillings are humming," Noah says, rubbing his jaw. Arthur feels it too. Not a sound so much as a pressure, a subtle tug through his bones. The old radio in the truck, left on a local station to catch weather updates, fries into static each time the bucket dips. His phone loses its mind. The map app throws the blue dot off into a pond, then into a field, then back to the cabin as if apologizing. They take turns, machine in hand, metal and muscle. The rain breathes harder. The roof leaks in new places with soft taps. Mud cakes their boots, dries, cakes again. The smell of the earth shifts as it deepens. Loam giving way to clay giving way to mineral, a sharper scent like iron blood on a thumb after a slip with a knife. "Hang on," Noah says, peering into the hole. He switches off the excavator to clear his ears. In the sudden hush, the rain grows louder, and the cabin creaks like an old ship. Arthur slides down on his knees, both palms in the mud, and feels for the thing that rings. His fingers track over pebbles and root hairs, then to a surface that is not stone. It is too smooth, too cold. It curves under his touch like a shoulder. He scoops muck aside. Black emerges, but not the soft black of wet soil or the glossy black of obsidian. This is a dense, lightless black that eats shine. He clears a patch the size of a dinner plate. It looks like metal but dull, like it has slept a long time without air. Noah passes a rag down. Arthur wipes, and the rag squeals more than slides. Tiny hairline patterns reveal themselves, hatching and crossing like frost. He has seen those patterns on the internet once in an article about something that fell from the sky. He doesn't say the word yet. His mouth is too dry. Old boiler? Safe? Cannonball? Noah offers, because he's a man who throws out every guess, hoping one sticks. Arthur shakes his head. No boiler. No safe. He swallows. The taste in his throat is metallic now. He hears his grandfather's voice, not as memory but as presence. "Don't name a thing you haven't met proper." He reaches back for a magnet from his pocket, a small one he keeps on the truck visor to find studs in barn walls. He lowers it toward the exposed black curve. The magnet jumps from his fingers, slaps the surface with a sound that's soft and vicious at the same time. The pull is so strong it pinches his skin. Noah whistles again, then swears softly. "Well, hell." Arthur lifts his eyes. Rain bows the doorway. The woods beyond are a watercolor blur. Inside the cabin, the air feels packed with static, the hair on his arms awake. He thinks of compasses. He thinks of needles and names. "Could be iron," Noah says. "Could be more," Arthur answers. The excavator makes short work of widening the pit. The thing below is bigger than either of them hoped or feared. Every inch they clear reveals more. A slow turning of night in the earth. It is not a sphere. It is a mass, distorted and muscled like something that fell hot and met the world not with a splash but with a punch. They are cautious now. They use shovels, their fingers. A soft brush Noah finds in his toolbox meant for detailing trucks. Arthur is gentler than he thought he could be. He clears mud from around a ridge and feels how it flows into another, like knuckles. "You need a rock hammer, a real one," Noah says, "and someone who knows how to talk to this." Arthur nods. He climbs out and calls the university 2 counties over. The geology office is quiet in summer, but a graduate student answers with coffee in her voice. Her name is Dr. Maya Patel, she corrects, because she defended her dissertation last month and hasn't gotten used to the title yet. Arthur describes the compass, the pull, the black mass with frosty patterns. "Don't touch it with chemicals," she says first. "Don't chip it. Don't cut it." Then more softly, "I'm on my way." By late afternoon, the rain is a steady curtain, pooling in the low places, sending small rivers under the cabin. A county truck splashes to a stop by the barn, and a man with a clipboard and a reflective vest steps out. He is thin in the way of people who never lift anything heavier than forms. He knocks on the cabin frame with 2 fingers like he doesn't want to touch it. "You Arthur Morgan?" he asks, as if the name might spook. Arthur stands. wipes his hands on his jeans. I am. Got a report about excavation without permit, the man says, eyes flicking to the hole, the machine, the mud, near a historical structure. Historical to who? Noah says, smiling without kindness. County says anything over 75 years, the man replies. He consults the clipboard, pen held like a baton. You can't dig until an inspector evaluates. Arthur glances at the hole where the dark mass hums against his bones. He glances at the compass in his pocket, trying to leap free. He feels the tug of two worlds, the one of rules written down and the one of rules older than paper. I'm not moving the cabin, he says. I'm not destroying anything. I'm uncovering something under my own dirt. Still, the man says, and makes a note. Cease until further notice. Noah's jaw works. Arthur lifts a hand that says, let me, without saying it. Noted, he says, the word dry as dust. The county truck leaves tracks full of rain. The sky lowers until it feels like a hand on the back of the neck. Arthur calls Maya to warn her about the weather in the county, and she laughs in a way that makes him like her immediately. Storms and clipboards are my native habitat, she says. See you soon. He hangs up and leans against the doorframe. The cabin timbers tick and sigh. The thing below waits, patient as stone. Arthur remembers his grandfather's compass pressed into his child palm, the needle alive. Sometimes what matters points a different way. He has followed it into the dark. Maya arrives at dusk in a hatchback wearing more mud than it deserves. She pulls a hard hat from the back seat and a pelican case that looks like it would float if you dropped it in a river. Her handshake is firm, her eyes bright behind rain-slick lashes. You've made friends with something interesting, she says, peering into the hole. She kneels, the beam of her headlamp clean and clinical. May I? Arthur nods, and she descends with a care that tells him she loves the thing she's about to meet. She doesn't touch it first. She looks. Regmag lips. She murmurs, tracing the air over the thumbprint hollows where the surface scalloped as it burned in through atmosphere. Widmanstetten patterns, she says, spotting the interleaving lines beneath the grime. This is iron nickel, likely coarse octahedrite. She grins up at him. You have a meteorite under your cabin. The word lands in the room like a living animal. Arthur exhales, a sound that is almost a laugh and almost a prayer. Noah lets out a low, impressed curse that stretches into a whistle. Could be large, Maya continues. Could be very large. We won't know until we map it. She cracks the pelican case. Inside, non-invasive instruments, magnets, a handheld XRF analyzer. She talks while she works, a river of specifics made human by the way she loves saying them. Nickel content over 5% is common. Trace elements, cobalt, gallium, germanium, iridium. The crystalline pattern you see, those intergrowths, only form when metal cools over millions of years in space. You can't fake that in any earthbound forge. She places the XRF against the cleaned patch. The device chirps. Numbers tick. She nods to herself. Rich in metallic phases, she says. This would throw any compass off like it had a crush. Value? Noah asks. Because there is hunger and hope baked into any farm, and he is honest enough to name them. Ballpark, no obligation, satisfaction not guaranteed. Maya laughs. I'm a scientist, not an appraiser. But she looks at the mass like a doctor looking at a newborn who is 3 weeks early and already shouting. If the size is what I think it might be and the structure's intact, museums will call. Private collectors will call. Mining companies will call. Though I'll beg you not to let them take a saw to it. It's an object that tells the truth about how worlds form. That's worth something more than money. But yes, it's worth money. Lightning limbs the woods. Thunder stacks on thunder. Rain thrashes the porch roof so hard it turns to mist. The cabin shudders as wind presses a shoulder against it and leans. A second county truck bounces down the lane. Headlights halos in the downpour. This time the man in the vest is not alone. A woman steps out with him, rain already needling her cheeks. We need you to stop, she says, voice pitched to Carrie. She has a badge instead of a clipboard. The badge says inspector, and the posture says unmovable object. You're too late to stop the sky, Noah mutters. But Arthur's face stills him. Arthur climbs out of the hole and meets them under the drip edge. We aren't demolishing, he says. We're uncovering. There's a meteorite under my cabin. The inspector blinks rain off her lashes. I don't care if there's the Ark of the Covenant under your cabin, she says. You need to cease activity until historical review and safety assessment. Lightning hits close enough to make the air slap. The ground hums like a plucked string. Inside the hole, the meteorite seems to drink the light and give back a steadier, colder kind. Arthur feels his grandfather's compass in his pocket kick like a heartbeat. Maya steps up, calm and precise. "Dr. Patel," she says, offering a card that melts at the edges in the rain but does the job. "University geology. This object is ferromagnetic and affecting navigation. It also poses a risk if this structure collapses. The safest course is to stabilize the site and prepare an extraction under controlled conditions. Waiting could cause damage to both." The inspector's jaw tightens. She looks from the scientist to the hole to the roof that lifts and settles with each gust. She is not a villain. She is someone with rules asked to stand in a room where rules are smaller than weather. She breathes in a way people do when they decide, then nods once. "You do not remove it tonight," she says. "You stabilize. We'll be back at first light." "Thank you," Arthur says and means it. They move. Ropes go up. Bracing beams slip into place. Tarps unfurl, useless against the kind of rain that moves sideways, but they make the effort. The excavator inches to a better angle, then goes quiet like a beast settling. Maya maps visible edges with chalk and tape, calling out numbers, marking a grid as if the earth were graph paper, and the night a patient student. "Feel that?" Noah asks at one point, holding up a wrench. The metal tugs toward the hole, gentle but insistent, as if the meteorite remembers what falling feels like and wants to teach other things to fall. Maya steps close to Arthur and lowers her voice under the drum of rain. "This is rare," she says. "Not just the rock, the timing, the story, where it chose to stop. You're going to have choices very soon. People will want to take it. People will want to pay you to let them. Decide now what you care about most." Arthur looks into the hole, where something older than thunder waits. He thinks of mortgage statements and feed bills, of roofs and alternators, of the old man's laugh and the feel of calluses when a hand squeezes your shoulder to say good work without words. He thinks of a compass that has always known where this was, even when he didn't. "I care about keeping the farm," he says, "and telling the truth about what it is." Maya nods. Those can go together. Outside, the storm shifts key. Lightning stitches the sky over the pasture, and the thunder that follows is not a crack, but a rumble that goes on too long. The ground vibrates. The cabin emits a deep groan like a tree deciding which way to fall. "Out," Arthur says, voice flat the way voices get when they're carrying more than sound. Everyone out. The floor gives first where the joists are softest. Boards tear with a sound like fabric. The edge of the pit crumbles, mud sloughing in a slow ooze that speeds at the last instant to a slick slide. Maya scrambles back, boots skidding, and Arthur catches her elbow, anchoring them both to the doorway post with his other hand. The meteorite reveals another side as the earth around it goes, a new face under old clay. When the lightning pops, the Widmanstätten lattice glints like a map of rivers beneath thin ice. Tools on the porch shiver and inch toward the doorway as if someone is tilting the house. "Kill anything that's metal and unsecured," Maya shouts over the rain. Noah grabs a bucket, scoops wrenches, hammers, nails in handfuls. A pry bar jerks toward the hole, and he snatches it by instinct, muscles standing out in his forearm as he drags it back and clips it to a belt loop. The inspector reappears in the doorway, hair plastered to her skull, eyes wide. "You're done," she says. But it's not a threat, it's a plea. "You're done for tonight." "We're stabilizing," Maya says and jerks her chin at the bracing beams. "Help or get clear." To her credit, the inspector helps. She holds a 2x8 while Noah sets it. She doesn't pretend to know more than the person who does. She sweats rain and curses with the same plain language everyone else uses when things turn heavy. A bolt strikes the oak in the yard, and the tree answers by exploding bark. The smell of ozone snaps, metallic as a handful of pennies. The cabin's single light bulb, plugged into a generator like a star on a string, flares and dies. Darkness collapses in like a lung. Headlamps bob. The world becomes small circles of white in a sheet of black. The meteorite is a presence more than a thing now, a cold animal breathing slow. The pull on anything ferrous grows stronger as more of its mass comes clear, a reminder that the earth keeps secrets with hands of gravity and gives them back reluctantly. "Straps," Arthur says. "We need to cradle it like we're lifting a newborn." The image surprises him. It's not how he thinks, but the care feels right. No chains that bite. Wide webbing. He and Noah feed straps under the edges they've freed, palms sliding in mud, fingers numb and cold that feels older than weather. Maya calculates mass in her head, translating density to weight to load. 1.5 tons, she says. Maybe 2. She positions the excavator's arm. We're not lifting, she adds. We're taking slack. If the ground goes, we keep it from falling. Truck's batteries are dead, the inspector calls from the yard. Everything's freaking out, my radio's a brick. Stay close, Arthur says without thinking, and she does. The wind changes. Rain turns to needles that sting exposed skin. The cabin leans and writes. The hole widens by a breath you can feel through your knees but not see. The straps go taut with a groan that sings in metal bones. Hold, Maya says. Hold. They hold. For a long minute, nothing moves but rain. Then the earth under the far side slumps another half-foot, and the meteorite shifts into the cradle they've made. The excavator arm takes the weight, hydraulics whining, and for the first time since it fell, centuries ago, millennia, the object is no longer in the exact place the earth chose for it. The pull on their tools lessens by a hair. The compass in Arthur's pocket still points true to it, but the desperation eases. He breathes, and it feels like the room breathes with him. The worst of the storm walks on, taking its hammer with it. What's left is the long, wet smolder of a rain that will soak into fields and feed the creek. The inspector slumps against the wall, laughing once in that way people do when they don't know if they're crying or joking. Noah claps Arthur on the back so hard his teeth click. Maya sits on the edge of the pit, headlamp angled down, rain dripping from her nose, and smiles at the thing in the straps like it's a student that just proved a theorem in public. You did it, she says. We did it. Then a beat later, the scientist reasserting herself. We stabilized it. Arthur crouches. He lays his palm on the strap, not on the metal. The cold finds him anyway, not biting but absolute. He thinks of distance. From empty space to atmosphere, from heat to impact, from buried to found. He thinks of the old man showing him how to reseat a fence post after a flood, of the patience of work done in right order. A pair of headlights turns slow into the lane. A white pickup with a logo on the door, Pantera Minerals. A man steps out, umbrella popping like a black mushroom. He moves like he expects doors to open before he reaches them. Heard you have something interesting, he says, voice warm like a salesman's living room. Evan Pierce. The inspector rolls her eyes so hard you can hear it. Maya looks at Arthur, a silent question. Noah's shoulders square. Evan peers into the hole without getting his boots muddy. He nods like someone tasting wine. We can help, he says. We can secure it, transport it, analyze it. We can make sure you're compensated fairly and quickly. Arthur stands. Rain trickles down his spine. He hears his grandfather again. Not words this time, but a tone. Amusement, mixed with warning. Fancy boots don't mean dry socks. We're not lifting tonight, Arthur says. Come back when the sun does. Evan's smile never drops, but it hardens. There's opportunity cost, he says. First mover advantage. First mover already fell out of the sky, Noah says. Evan laughs like a good sport and retreats to his warm truck. The wipers beat time as he phones someone, blue light painting his face. The cabin settles into a post-storm quiet, beams ticking as they release tension. The meteorite hangs in its sling, an anchor lifted an inch from the seabed. Arthur closes his hand around the compass and feels the needle, pressed stubbornly against its side, still pointing, still insisting he pay attention. He does. Morning arrives clear, washed, edges sharp. The woods steam where sun kisses them. Birds try out their voices like instruments tuning. When Arthur walks the path with coffee in a thermos and sleep in his eyes, the world feels like it remembers how to be simple again. The yard is a mess in the way yards are after big weather. Branches down, puddles where puddles don't belong. The cabin is a little more tired, a little more honest about its age. Inside, the meteorite hangs steady, the straps humming occasionally with the weight of something that was too heavy for a long time and is now considering lightness. Paperwork arrives with the inspector, who brings 2 colleagues and a look that says, I fought for you in rooms you don't want to sit in. She conducts the safety briefing like a pastor who won't let anyone leave hungry. Maya lays out a plan on a tarp with markers and tape, speaks about angles and loads and friction with the peace of someone who knows the math is on her side. Evan comes back, as promised, with a different truck and a different smile. He brings an offer that is both generous and neat. A museum calls too, voice crisp with earnestness and funding. A private collector's assistant emails at 5:12 a.m. Subject line 7-figure interest. By noon, Arthur could print a sheaf of numbers and paper the cabin with ways to stop worrying about feed bills. He chooses with the same calm he uses to cull a row of bad fence posts, one by one, until the line holds. He chooses a deal that pays well enough to put a new roof on the barn and a new engine in the truck, and a cushion in the bank thick enough to sleep on. $740,000 that feel unreal written in ink, and incredibly real when he imagines writing checks without flinching. He chooses an agreement that keeps the meteorite intact and puts it on display with a plaque that tells where it fell, and whose compass found it, and why it matters. He chooses a clause that funds the county school science lab, because kids should hold magnets in their hands and feel things jump to meet them. The extraction is slow and reverent. They brace the cabin one last time. They cradle the mass with a gantry they roll in on heavy casters. When they lift, the straps sing, and the meteorite rises with the dignity of a whale surfacing. No splash, just the certainty of something vast. Sun rakes across the revealed surface. The patterns flash and settle. People who do not cry, cry. When the truck pulls away, Arthur stands in the lane with his hand on the compass and watches dust drift back to earth. The cabin looks suddenly more itself without the weight beneath, like a chest that has finally exhaled. He walks inside. The hole is just a hole again. He kneels and presses his palm to the dirt. Warmth. A little. Just a little. He smiles. Weeks fold into themselves the way good weeks do. The roof gets fixed. The truck starts without pleading. The feed store balance zeroes out and stays that way. A man at the diner claps him on the shoulder and says he watched a video from the museum where kids pressed their noses to glass and gasped at the frost patterns, and learned the word Widmanstätten, and said it 3 times because it feels good in the mouth. The county school opens a room with bright lights and new microscopes. Maya sends a postcard from a conference where she presented the Morgan meteorite, and people lined up afterward to tell her they got into rocks because of this story. Some evenings, Arthur takes the compass and a folding chair to the cabin. He sits on the porch with his feet on the top step and listens to the long, layered quiet. Crickets sewing up the day, a fox negotiating with its own hunger, wind talking to leaves. He opens the lid and watches the needle find north again with a calm certainty that feels like a promise kept. On a night when the air smells faintly of cut hay and cooling iron, he speaks into a camera propped on a crate and tells the story the way it asked to be told. Without bravado, with gratitude. He shows the compass. He shows the hole. He shows his hands and what they did. He says, "If you made it this far, you're my kind of people." You know that sometimes the small, ordinary thing points to something larger than your field, larger than your day, larger than your fear. If you want more stories like this, about stubborn hope and the way the world still surprises you, click on the next video right here. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me about the time something pointed you someplace you didn't expect and you followed anyway. Around here, we plant, we fix, we listen, and once in a while, the sky answers. He closes the compass and the needle rests with a soft tick. North is north again. The cabin breathes. The farm, for tonight, is a little miracle made of soil and weather and a dark stone that fell a long way to land exactly where a poor farmer could find it.